On this Tuesday night, Honda puts it in park. The automaker says it's keeping production and thousands of jobs at a Canadian plant, denying reports to the contrary. The lingering threats from U.S. tariffs.
Donald Trump has paralyzed the auto industry.
Oil outlook, what's fueling the forecast that gas prices will plummet. Northern exposure, how domestic tourism is expected to soar.
There is a strong propensity to buy Canadian.
And how the trade war can keep some Americans away from Canada. Plus, the ultimate Montreal Canadiens man cave.
I have a lot more that's not on display.
How this superfan's Habs pride also has a purpose.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. There was another scare today about Canadian jobs being lost to the United States thanks to President Trump's trade war. A Japanese newspaper reported Honda is considering moving production at its plant in Alliston, Ontario, to the U.S., a decision that could affect more than 4,000 workers. Honda and the Ontario and federal governments are calling the report inaccurate. The White House, though, made clear today President Trump has not budged on his drive to bring jobs back to America, nor has he changed his view of Canada.
The president still maintains his position on Canada. The United States has been subsidizing Canada's national defense, and he believes that Canadians would benefit greatly from becoming the 51st state of the United States of America.
With that as a backdrop, Eric Sorensen breaks down what's happening with Honda and how the federal government is responding.
A truckload of CR-Vs and other Honda vehicles among the estimated 400,000 produced here every year. Reports from Japan that Honda is considering moving production south of the border set off alarms in Alliston, where many of the more than 4,000 Honda workers live.
It'd be a massive loss for everyone in this community.
They have a lot of employment, they have a lot of production up here. Trucking is going to be affected. Each and everything is going to be affected.
Honda quickly issued a statement of reassurance that it will operate at full capacity for the foreseeable future, and no changes are being considered at this time, adding, "We constantly study options for future planning." Ontario's premier is convinced Honda isn't going anywhere.
We're going to keep Honda here, and I'll do everything I can to protect the people and their jobs.
Honda made history as the first Japanese automaker to build a production plant in Canada in 1986. Since then, it has produced some 10 million vehicles. Most are sold in the United States, and that's the issue. The U.S. president has made it clear he wants production of cars for Americans to be built in America.
They're going to have to get going and build them because otherwise they have to pay tariffs. Very simple.
One auto industry analyst says it would take years and billions of dollars to move production out of Canada, but Trump's threats have to be a concern for car makers.
That's where Donald Trump has paralyzed the auto industry, is that automakers right now don't know when and where to invest because they don't know if or when the tariffs will end.
Ottawa has now announced it will exempt car makers from Canada's countermeasure tariffs if they maintain their manufacturing footprint in this country. The local mayor welcomes any help.
I'll support them, and we'll make sure that it happens. And for my level of government, I'm the lowest, the municipal, and my council, you know what, we'll do whatever it takes.
Just last year, Ottawa and Honda announced a multi-billion-dollar deal to make e-vehicles and batteries in this region.
Honda really made Alliston.
And there's relief that Honda has no plans to leave Alliston for now.
I hope it never happens.
Eric Sorensen, Global News, Alliston, Ontario.
President Trump's biggest target in his trade war is China. Most imports from China to the U.S. face a 145% levy. And now Bloomberg News is reporting the Chinese government has ordered its domestic airlines to stop delivery of Boeing jets. Trump seemed to confirm it, posting they just reneged on the big Boeing deal, saying that they will not take possession of fully committed to aircraft. China is the world's biggest market for airplanes, and Boeing, a major employer in the U.S., has racked up billions in operating losses. Here in Canada, opinion polls suggest the more Trump threatens to make Canada the 51st state and impose tariffs, the more voters flock to the Liberals. But the gap with the Conservatives appears to be narrowing. Today, Liberal leader Mark Carney was promising measures to help workers get through the tariff crisis and assist mid-career workers with retraining. As David Aiken reports, Carney is also trying to keep Trump top of mind.
The Liberals know the threat of Trump has helped boost their poll numbers. But with Liberal poll numbers starting to droop, leader Mark Carney on Tuesday tried to boost Trump's profile on the campaign with this warning.
President Trump is trying to fundamentally restructure the international trading system.
And a reminder of Liberal plans to deal with Trump.
What we need to build a new, resilient economy in face of this economic crisis caused by President Trump.
Carney says what Canada needs is a skilled workforce, and so earlier in the campaign, the Liberals announced an $8,000 apprenticeship training grant. On Tuesday, the Liberal leader promised a new benefit to help mid-career workers.
The benefit will provide up to $15,000 per Canadian for training.
The new benefit will be sector-specific, aimed at improving the talent pool in manufacturing, healthcare, construction, and technology, including artificial intelligence.
In order to make the most of the new economy, that learning must continue throughout people's lifetimes, throughout their careers.
Here in Quebec, the pitch appears to be working so far, with Liberals aiming to poach up to 10 seats from the Bloc Québécois, all because of the U.S. president.
The reason they're giving is Donald Trump. The reason they're giving is we need somebody strong at the table to do the negotiations, because that's the main focus of the whole election.
Next up, the leaders' debates, the only leaders' debates of this campaign. In French on Wednesday, in English on Thursday, a critical juncture for parties to catch the poll-leading Liberals. Donna.
Okay, David Aiken in Quebec, thanks. The federal Conservative leader is trying to attract the support of older voters with a promise to protect them against fraud. Pierre Poilievre is vowing to force banks and cell phone companies to do a better job detecting scams. As Taria Isri reports, polls show the Tories are struggling to win over a key demographic.
Scammers can prey on anyone, but seniors in particular are frequent targets.
We're going to stop these fraudsters, period.
A key voting bloc the Conservative leader is trying to sway by offering them new protections. Pierre Poilievre is promising stronger measures to fight fraud, a crime that costs Canadians at least $638 million last year.
We're going to pass the Stop Scamming Seniors Act, a common-sense law that forces banks and telecom companies to deploy state-of-the-art technology to catch scams.
He's also pledging stiffer sentences, including a year in jail for fraud over $5,000 and up to 5 years for fraud over $1 million.
It was so slick.
Poilievre highlighted a Global News report about an 81-year-old Montreal woman who lost $100,000 in a phone scam.
After the lost Liberal decade, no action has been taken.
But Ipsos polling shows baby boomers, who have some of the highest voting turnout rates, are leaning Liberal.
Seniors, based on healthcare, based on Trump, feel that Mark Carney is the man for the hour.
The Liberals have promised to protect retirement savings. The NDP is vowing to boost the guaranteed income supplement, while the Conservatives would let working seniors earn $34,000 tax-free.
One of the things that we're not seeing from the parties is a comprehensive strategic view of how are you going to deal with the aging population.
So far, Poilievre has had a light schedule in Montreal as he prepares for the French debate. The Conservative leader is trying to win over Quebecers, another demographic that polls suggest he has struggled to resonate with. Donna?
All right, Taria Isri, thanks. Canada's inflation rate dipped slightly in March, mostly because of the lower price of gas and travel. Stats Canada says inflation slowed to 2.3% in March, down from 2.6% in February. The biggest drop was airfare, as fewer Canadians flew to the U.S. over March break, pushing down ticket prices. The Bank of Canada's next interest rate decision is tomorrow. As the U.S. economy slows, oil prices may slump. OPEC has cut forecasts for a growth in global oil demand slightly this year and next. And while that may be good news for drivers, those who work in Canada's energy sector are anxious. As Heather Yourex-West reports, it's a cycle the industry has struggled through before.
In a province reliant on resource revenues, slumping oil prices are a scary thing.
In terms of the provincial revenue take, in terms of profits in the sector, yeah, it's bad.
Hit first by Trump's trade war uncertainty and increasing production from OPEC, the alliance of oil-producing nations, fears of a potential U.S. recession have forecasters like Goldman Sachs projecting slumping oil prices well into next year.
So far, the carbon tax pause has had a huge impact on gas prices compared to last year, but now we're also going to be experiencing the low price of oil. So many Canadians are going to be seeing gas prices that we haven't really seen prior to the pandemic in many years.
But for those who work in the energy sector, it's paychecks, not pump prices on the line. Fortunately, the situation in the Alberta oil patch has changed significantly since the last time we saw a price slide.
We have these pipeline projects that have come online recently with TMX and then with Coastal GasLink and LNG Canada. The timing couldn't be better because we are getting outlets to the Asian market.
New market access analysts expect will save companies from having to make deep cuts this downturn, though investment is expected to slow.
Every dollar oil dips represents a $750 million hit to Alberta royalties, but the province says it's not concerned for now. That's because the price of Western Canadian Select, the discounted Alberta crude, hasn't dropped as sharply as the U.S. benchmark. Still, if this slump continues, Alberta will find itself even deeper in the red. Donna?
All right, Heather Yourex-West in Calgary tonight. Thanks, Heather. In Toronto, police are looking for the driver of a vehicle who hit multiple people on a downtown university campus and then fled the scene. It happened this afternoon on a pedestrian-only path at Toronto Metropolitan University. 4 people were injured. 2 were taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Police believe the suspect may have been targeting a specific individual on that walkway. In the U.S., a Palestinian student at Columbia University was detained by immigration officials when he went for an interview, part of his final step to becoming a U.S. citizen. Mohsen Madawi, who was arrested in Vermont, his lawyers say they don't know where he is. Madawi co-founded the Palestinian Student Union at Columbia with Mahmoud Khalil, who was also arrested under President Trump's crackdown on student protesters. A Vermont judge issued an order that protected Madawi from deportation, but on Friday, a judge in Louisiana ruled that Khalil, a legal permanent resident, can be deported. The stage is set for a court showdown between the White House and America's most prestigious university. In a social media post, President Donald Trump suggested Harvard University should lose its tax-exempt status. A few hours earlier, it was announced the Trump administration is freezing more than $2 billion in grants to Harvard, plus $60 million in contracts. Harvard has refused to accept what Trump is demanding. He wants an overhaul of hiring and admissions at Harvard, wants the power of its student body reduced, and wants foreign students who break laws reported. Harvard's president posted no government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue. Canada's tourism sector gears up for a busy season coming up. How the trade war isn't stopping some Americans from visiting. What the Trump administration is saying and doing has thousands of Canadians rethinking traveling south and making plans here at home instead. And some American tourists are using their travel dollars to support Canada. As Melissa Ridgen explains, it could be a banner tourism season.
It began as an April Fool's joke, this mock billboard on Tourism Winnipeg's social media, touting the city as the middle child who will no longer be ignored.
What we saw in the comments from what people were saying on all of our social media channels all over the place was, this needs to be a real campaign. And we're like, okay, it's confirmed. We're rolling it out. Let's go.
Canada's tourism eager to cash in on the mood.
There is a strong propensity to buy Canadian at the moment and encouraging people to see their own country, their own province.
Gordon Doris Pavlik are doing just that with a family trip to Churchill, and they're not alone.
Things were already booked up by maybe the second week in February we're like, oh my goodness, we need to get on this quicker. So then we contacted our travel agent and kind of went from there.
Many innkeepers in Atlantic Canada report Americans who planned trips before relations began to sour haven't cancelled.
There's a lot of embarrassment by the travelers that are coming here. They constantly apologize for the state of affairs in their country, and they hope that we don't hold it against them.
To show her support, this Colorado resident went on a Buy Canadian social media page asking for tips to travel to Saskatchewan.
I got like 2,500 plus responses of welcoming me. It was so overwhelming.
A swanky Saskatoon hotel and stay at mineral-rich Lake Manitou, a steal given the exchange rate. With concerns growing about scrutiny Canadians could face when crossing the border, many appear to be taking heed. Recent Leger polling shows 48% of Canadian travelers are less likely to visit the U.S. now than they were a year ago. Those middle children provinces hoping that means more attention finally for them. Melissa Ridgen, Global News, Winnipeg.
Ahead, the push for peace after 2 years of civil war in Sudan. A severe sandstorm in central and southern Iraq turned the sky an eerie orange. Known as a haboob, the sandstorm has grounded flights and sent thousands of people to hospital with breathing problems. The sand blew in from Saudi Arabia. Experts say dust storms like this are getting worse and more frequent as the region experiences more intense droughts. Today marks 2 years of a brutal civil war in Sudan, and there are warnings the darkest chapters may still lie ahead. Over the weekend, more than 100 people sheltering in displacement camps were killed. The UN estimates at least 24,000 people have died in the civil war. The true number, though, could be much higher. Almost 12 million people have been forced from their homes, and more than 24 million are facing acute hunger. After the Trump administration froze U.S. aid, today delegates from Europe, the UK, Africa, and Canada agreed to boost funding to try to find a path to peace. Redmond Shannon reports.
Zamzam refugee camp in the Darfur region of Sudan, home to hundreds of thousands of displaced people. Under attack as Sudan's paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, take control of the camp, fighting Sudan's army for control of the country. Women, children and aid workers among more than 100 killed in Zamzam in recent days, according to aid groups.
On this, the second anniversary of the war, the UK is hosting a summit of foreign ministers to try and end the conflict. However, neither of Sudan's warring parties are here.
We have got to persuade the warring parties to protect civilians, to let aid in and across the country, and to put peace first.
Some, but not all, of the nations accused of supporting the warring sides were present, most notably the United Arab Emirates, which denies funding the RSF.
What we need to see, in order for this meeting to be a success, is an end, an immediate cease to the hostilities that we're seeing.
Peace advocate Eva Kerr says the exclusion of any type of Sudanese voice at the one-day meeting harks back to a colonial attitude toward Africa.
Even an observer status seat would be, a bit of a slap in the face. So not being in the room, you can imagine how that feels to people who cannot contact loved ones on the ground.
Charities say tens of millions of people are in need of help. Participants, including Canada, made new pledges Tuesday in the wake of the US slashing its international aid budget.
Far worse, both in terms of the absolute numbers and the comparative scale, compared to Ukraine and Gaza. But people don't talk about it.
The London meeting ended with a joint statement and a call to action, but few details yet on how peace can be achieved. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
NATO's Secretary General made a surprise visit to Ukraine today. Mark Rutte visited wounded troops in Odessa and met with President Volodymyr Zelensky. He reinforced NATO's unwavering support for Ukraine. NATO is continuing to supply Ukraine, but Rutte acknowledged negotiations with Russia, spurred by President Trump's push for a ceasefire, are not easy. He strongly condemned Russia's missile attack on Sumy on Sunday that killed 36 people. Down to the wire next, the Montreal Canadiens' anxiety-inducing playoff push. For the Montreal Canadiens, it could all come down to the final regular season game. Are they in the playoffs or not? So many people are expected to be watching tomorrow night. The start time of the French language leaders debate has been moved to 6 p.m. Eastern to avoid facing off with the Habs. But there might not be anyone more invested in Montreal's success than a superfan, Mike Armstrong, Matt.
Well, this has been coined the Habs Cave, and I've sort of taken off with that name.
Sunil Petish started collecting when he was about 5 years old and hasn't stopped.
It kind of grew into bigger and bigger items.
Now, there are fans, big fans, and super fans. Petish is comfortably in that last category. That said,
yes, there's a lot of stress.
There isn't much that's comfortable being a Habs fan right now.
I mean, I hate saying this on camera, maybe my wife will see, but I get that sort of notification on my watch once in a while. Your heart rate is too high.
Well, Petish isn't doing his heart any favors. The Canadiens have lost 3 in a row. Petish is a season ticket holder. He was at all of them, home and away.
Actually, Mike, the only game I missed this month, and I'm going to the game tomorrow as well, was the one in Nashville. And I just couldn't find anyone who wanted to take the flight with me. But I would have gone to that one too.
Petish is a general contractor by trade. When he and his family moved in, the basement was unfinished and he went to work.
I have a lot more that's not on display.
Now, he'll admit there's a bit of addiction in his abode, but there is also purpose. He holds events and has raised about $120,000 for charity. He also shares his passion with players, past and present, who visited. Petish insists it's healthy.
It's really the chase. If there's this item that I'm looking for that I don't have, that's really where the addiction takes over.
The Canadiens find themselves on the playoff bubble, hoping it doesn't burst. They need to either win Wednesday or hope Columbus loses one of their last 2 games.
I'll just look down. I just can't really look at certain points.
Petish is going to give his heart a workout again. He'll be in the stands. To be fair, it's not like he'd be able to relax and take his mind off things sitting at home. Mike Armstrong, Global News, St. Lazare, Quebec.
And that is Global National for this Tuesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada showcases Vancouver, BC, Shiloh, Manitoba, and Ocean Pond on Bonavista Peninsula, Newfoundland and Labrador. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.